When we step into a new day, we often forget that the ground under our feet is not as still as it feels. The earth spins, the clouds drift, the light shifts from gold to ash and back again. But when our hearts grow heavy, we imagine that our pain is the only thing that stands still. We treat sadness like a mountain that refuses to budge, and worry like a storm that has set its roots in the sky. Yet life, in its wide and wandering wisdom, whispers something simpler, something softer. Don't stress, everything is temporary. We arrive in this world with hands so small they can barely hold a breath, yet we grow into people who try to hold entire worlds. We try to grip every fear, every relationship, every mistake, every dream, and keep them all from slipping through our fingers. We forget that our hands were never meant to carry the weight of eternity. They were meant to touch moments, not trap them. To greet seasons, not to freeze them. To receive, to release, to rise again. Temporary does not mean unimportant. It does not shrink the value of joy or sorrow. It honors the truth that life moves. It honors the truth that even the deepest pain has a place to go, that even the loudest hurt will one day grow quiet if we let time speak. And time, whether it crawls or gallops, is always speaking. It tells us that the night is long but never final. It tells us the sun has not forgotten us, even when clouds barricade the sky. It tells us there are chapters ahead we cannot yet imagine, chapters where we will laugh in rooms we have not yet walked into, with people we have not yet met, wearing strength we have not yet discovered. So many of us live as if trouble is permanent ink. We fear that one bad week is the end of our story, that one heartbreak has closed the gates of love forever, that one mistake has carved a scar too deep to heal. But the truth is kinder. The truth is that everything that presses on your chest today will one day let go. The truth is that every tear you shed today will dry, and your face will learn to smile again, not because it forgets sorrow, but because it survives it. There are days when stress feels like a vine climbing your ribcage, squeezing until you can barely breathe. It whispers lies in your ear, tells you that things will never get better, that the shadows have settled in for good. But stress has no backbone. It has no roots strong enough to outlive you. It only feels permanent because your heart is tender, because you care deeply, because you want your life to be steady and safe. Those aren't weaknesses. They are proof that your spirit is alive. You must treat stress the way the shore treats the waves. Let it crash, let it roar, let it rise tall as a tower if it must, but know that it will always return to the sea. You are not made of the same material as your storms. You are made of the same material as the sunrise, as the wind, as the echo of laughter that carries across generations. When life shakes you, remember you were not planted to break. You were planted to rise. The trees that stand tallest are not the ones untouched by storms, but the ones that learn to bend with the wind. They sway with grace. They crack and heal. They lose leaves and grow new ones. They trust the season even when the season hurts. Think back to every moment in your life that once felt unbearable. You survived it. You may have cried, lost sleep, stumbled through days that felt like they had no end, but you survived. And now when you look back at those same troubles, they do not sit on your chest anymore. They have become stories. They have become lessons. Some have become blessings in strange wrapping. Others have faded into dust, but none of them own you anymore. This is the gift of time. This is the promise of movement. This is why you must not stress, because everything you carry now is already on its way to changing shape. The weight you feel today will be lighter tomorrow, lighter still next week, and one day you will wake up and realize you no longer feel it at all. Grief becomes gentler, fear becomes quieter, confusion becomes clarity, and you, my dear, become wiser. There will be days when your faith feels like a thin thread. Days when your hope has to fight to stay awake. But hold on. The world is full of endings that become beginnings, full of doors that close only so that new ones can open, full of losses that create space for unexpected gifts. You may not see the purpose yet, but it is being shaped in silence, carved in secret, prepared in places you cannot witness. Life often works behind the curtain before it steps onto the stage. Do not let temporary pain convince you that you have a permanent problem. Do not let temporary confusion convince you that you have lost your path. Do not let temporary loneliness convince you that you are unworthy of love. These are passing visitors. They knock hard, they enter without permission, they stay longer than they should, but they do not live here. You live here. Your spirit lives here. Your purpose lives here. What is meant for you will not fear the wind. What is meant for you will not be chased away by time. But what is not meant for you must fall away, and sometimes it falls loudly. Sometimes it falls in the form of people leaving, opportunities slipping, relationships breaking, plans dissolving. And it hurts because we are human, because we are attached, because we want everything we love to stay. But imagine if everything stayed. Imagine carrying every version of yourself, every mistake, every person who never treated you right, every dead dream. You would collapse under the weight. You were not built to hold everything, only what is yours. Let the rest go. Let it drift like leaves in autumn. Let it find its own way to the ground. Your path will not disappear because something left you. Your path will grow clearer because of it. Release what is outgrowing you. Release what does not know how to hold your heart. Release the stories that no longer deserve your voice. And while you release, remember to breathe. There is a quiet power in the breath, a soft reminder that even your lungs understand life's rhythm in and out. Receive and release, take and let go. Your breath knows something your mind forgets. It knows that nothing stays. Not the inhale, not the exhale, not the moment between them. This truth can scare you or set you free. If you look at life's temporary nature with fear, you will cling to everything even tighter. But if you look at it with understanding, you will learn to flow with the river, instead of trying to dam it with your bare hands. You will learn that change is not your enemy. It is your maker. It is your teacher. It is the gentle sculptor shaping you into someone braver than your past, wiser than your hurts, stronger than your shadows. When you trust that everything is temporary, you start to treat each moment differently. You stop rushing your joy. You savor it. You hold laughter in your mouth like honey. You sit in the sunlight a little longer. You listen more closely to the people you love. You say the words you used to hold back. You stand up straighter. You walk slower. You breathe deeper. You understand that joy, too, is a passing guest, and because of that, you welcome it with both arms wide open. Temporary is not a curse. Temporary is a gift. A reminder that every day is alive. A reminder that you are growing. A reminder that nothing owns you. Not fear, not heartbreak, not stress, not failure. You are bigger than every one of your troubles because you are not temporary. Your soul is old. Your spirit has its own roots. You are made of something that continues and continues and continues. So the next time stress crawls toward you, meeting you at the door with worry in its eyes, speak to it with the calm of someone who has survived storms before. Tell it you see it. Tell it you feel it. But tell it, too, that it cannot stay. Tell it your spirit has places to be. Tell it your heart is learning to rise again, learning to move with the seasons, learning that nothing at all, can stop a soul that knows its own strength. You are not here to be crushed by the world. You are here to rise through it, to walk through your temporary trials with the knowledge that they cannot steal your permanent light. Let life change. Let yourself grow. Let stress pass by like a cloud that does not know your name. Because it is true as the turning of the earth and the coming of dawn. Don't stress. Everything is temporary. Stress loses its power the moment you remember life never stands still, because stillness is an illusion we create when fear freezes our view. When trouble arrives, it convinces us that the road ahead has shut down, that the sky has stopped moving, that the weight on our chest will settle in like an unwelcome tenant. But the world around us keeps turning even when our thoughts feel stuck. The sun climbs its way across the sky whether we are smiling or sinking. Trees keep growing ring by ring even when we believe our progress has paused. Rivers keep running toward the sea even when our hope feels too tired to run with them. When you understand that motion is built into the bones of the universe, you begin to understand that stress cannot trap you the way it threatens to. Trouble wants you to forget that seasons rotate. It wants you to believe winter is eternal and the cold in your heart will never thaw. But the universe has a habit of proving stress wrong. Flowers push through dirt they should never have survived. People stand again in places where they once broke. Dreams return wearing new shapes after you thought they were lost for good. Nothing in nature stays the same, and you are part of nature, not separate from it. So the moment you remember this truth, stress loses its sharp edges. It becomes something passing instead of something permanent. You begin to breathe differently. Your shoulders loosen. Your thoughts stretch out instead of curling in tight. You stop treating fear like a fact and start seeing it as a moment. Life never keeps one rhythm for too long. Sometimes it moves fast and pulls you forward with it. Other times it moves slow and asks you to be patient. And patience is often the place where stress tries to build a home. But when you remind yourself that movement always returns, that nothing stays stuck forever, patience stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like preparation. You realize you are not waiting in a cage. You are waiting in a hallway right before a door opens. Stress feeds on the belief that this moment is the only moment. It grows stronger when you forget your own history. When you forget all the storms you have already survived, all the nights that once felt endless but eventually gave you morning. Remembering motion is remembering victory. It is remembering that time is your quiet ally, working even when you feel too tired to work with it. Your heart changes, your mind shifts, your circumstances stretch in new directions. Even sorrow has its own journey, and it never walks in a straight line. When you step back and watch the flow of your life, you see how nothing has ever stayed exactly as it was, not even your pain, not even your joy. Life breathes, expands, contracts, turns, lifts, drops, lifts again. And when you hold this truth close, stress can no longer convince you that it has the final word. It becomes small compared to the motion carrying you forward. Every challenge carries an expiration date, even when it arrives disguised as forever. Because hardship often wears the mask of permanence to make your spirit doubt its own strength. When difficulty steps into your life, it rarely walks in politely. It barges in, spreading its shadows across every corner, whispering that it will never leave, trying to convince you that the feeling you have today will be the feeling you have for the rest of your life. But challenges are terrible actors. They pretend to be eternal, yet their footprints always fade with time. They claim they have come to stay, yet they are already unraveling from the moment they appear. When you pause long enough to look back at the path behind you, you can see this pattern in every chapter you've lived. There were moments when fear felt glued to your ribs, when heartbreak felt too deep to ever loosen, when confusion felt like fog that would never lift. But it did lift. It always did. You moved through storms you once thought would drown you. You walked out of rooms you never thought you'd escape. You woke up stronger after nights you believed would break you in half. The challenges that once towered over you are now memory, softened by distance. Humbled by the simple passage of time, a challenge only feels permanent when you are sitting in the center of it. When you are in the middle of struggle, the edges blur, the clock slows, and everything hurts louder than it should. It becomes hard to imagine a day when the sting won't feel sharp, or when your chest won't feel heavy. But just because you cannot see the ending doesn't mean the ending isn't already forming. Solutions are often building themselves quietly, like seeds sprouting underground long before the soil cracks open to show their work. Healing is weaving itself through you even on the days when you feel stuck. Answers are gathering strength even when silence surrounds you. Challenges are part of the rhythm of life, rising and falling like tides. They come to test your balance, sharpen your wisdom, carve new depth into your character. But tides never stay at their highest point. They rise, but they must also retreat. The same is true for pain. The same is true for confusion. The same is true for any moment that makes you question your worth or your way forward. Hardships are temporary visitors, not lifelong companions. Even when they knock loudly, even when they stay longer than you expected, they are still bound to the laws of change. There is a strange comfort in recognizing that nothing in this world can hold the same shape forever. What overwhelms you today will soften. What scares you today will lose its teeth. What stands in your way today will shift, crumble, or move aside. Challenges may bend you, tire you, stretch you wider than you thought you could stretch. But they cannot claim you. because they are not built to last. Letting go of what hurts makes room for the peace trying to reach you, because the heart only has so much space and pain can take up far more than it deserves. We hold on to hurt the way a child clutches a broken toy, not because it still works, but because it once meant something. We grip old memories, old wounds, old disappointments, believing that if we keep them close, we can somehow control them. But pain does not shrink when you hold it tighter. It grows. It steals space meant for healing, clouds meant for clarity, and songs meant to rise in your chest. Peace waits at the door, gentle and patient, but it cannot enter a room already overflowing with what was never meant to stay hurt, has a stubborn way of convincing you that releasing it means losing a part of yourself, as if your identity is tied to your suffering. But you are not your heartbreak. You are not your past mistakes. You are not the story someone else tried to write over your spirit. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is not pretending nothing happened. Letting go is choosing to stop carrying what keeps cutting into your palms. It is choosing to open your hands so new things can rest there. It is choosing to trust that what left your life was never meant to own it. Peace cannot fight its way in. It does not enter through force. It enters through space, through your willingness to release the heaviness you have grown used to. Some people hold on to hurt because they fear the empty place it will leave behind. They fear stillness, fear quiet, fear the unknown that comes after release. But empty space is not a threat. Empty space is an invitation. It is the breath before the next chapter. It is the soil where something gentler can grow. It is where strength begins to knit itself back together without interruption. There is a kind of courage in letting go, a courage that does not roar but whispers. It whispers that your worth is not tied to suffering. It whispers that your heart deserves calm. It whispers that your life is too precious to be shaped by wounds that refuse to heal. When you choose to let go, you choose to lift the weight off your chest, even if only an inch at a time. There is no rule that says release must be fast. Letting go can be slow, soft, quiet. You can loosen your grip one memory at a time, one expectation at a time, one heavy thought at a time, and as you loosen your grip, something shifts. Your breath deepens, your shoulders lower, your nights grow kinder. You begin to notice small moments of peace slipping in through the cracks, filling the spaces where pain once lived. Peace is subtle like that. It does not rush you. It does not demand perfection. It comes in small waves at first, testing the room, expanding little by little as you continue to create space for it. And with each wave, you begin to realize how much of your life was waiting on the other side of your hurt, how many doors were blocked by the things you refused to release, how much beauty was trying to reach you once you chose to let go. Your spirit grows stronger every time you survive a season you once feared, because strength is not built in calm weather, but in the storms that shake you awake. When you look back at the moments that shaped you, you will notice they were rarely the easy ones. Growth hides in the days when you can barely lift your head, when your voice trembles, when your heart feels too heavy to carry. Those are the seasons that carve deeper courage into your bones. Those are the seasons that prove your resilience to you, even when you walked through them thinking you were fragile. Every time you survive what once terrified you, something inside you expands, stretches, and learns its own depth. Fear has a way of exaggerating the size of the storm. When you stand at the beginning of a hard season, the challenges ahead look taller than mountains. You imagine yourself shrinking under their shadows. You doubt your strength before you even take the first step. But life has a way of revealing what you are made of. The moment you move forward, even in hesitation, you begin to learn that your spirit is not as breakable as your fear claimed. You realize you can walk through pain without losing your light. You realize you can be afraid and still continue. You realize bravery is not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving in spite of it. There are seasons that you think will crush you, seasons that feel too dark, too long, too confusing. You may walk through days when everything feels uncertain, or nights when you cannot see any sign of tomorrow's hope. Yet somehow, every sunrise finds you anyway. Somehow you keep waking up, keep breathing, keep going. You underestimate this kind of strength because it doesn't always feel heroic. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when your heart is tired. Sometimes it looks like choosing kindness when anger would be easier. Sometimes it looks like taking one small step on a day when you want to collapse. But each small act plants another root in the foundation of your spirit. When you finally leave a difficult season behind, you step out carrying something the struggle could not steal. You carry wisdom. You carry insight. You carry a new understanding of your own worth. You carry a quiet power that hums beneath your ribs, reminding you that you are capable of more than you ever imagined. And this strength does not vanish. It follows you into the next chapter. It becomes part of the way you stand, the way you speak, the way you love yourself. It becomes a shield when new fear tries to creep in. Because now you have proof that you can survive what once threatened to undo you. Each hard season becomes a chapter you can look back on, not with joy perhaps, but with respect for the person you became through it. You begin to see that none of your growth happened in the calm. It happened in the chaos, the uncertainty, the nights full of questions. It happened when you kept going despite the weight pulling you down. And every time you emerge from such a season, your spirit grows steadier, wiser, and more grounded, shaped not by softness alone, but by the storms that taught you exactly how strong you truly are. Joy becomes richer when you stop gripping moments and start flowing with them. Because joy is not something you can trap in your hands like a bird afraid of the sky. Joy is a visitor, gentle and bright, meant to be welcomed, not owned. When you cling to a moment, trying to freeze it in place, you squeeze the life out of it. You turn something meant to breathe into something rigid. But when you let joy move freely, when you let it come and go as naturally as tides, it has room to grow softer, deeper, fuller. It settles into your life not as a rare spark, but as a steady glow that keeps returning, again and again in its own rhythm. So many people fear the temporary nature of joy. They treat happiness like a fragile glass that will break if they stop watching it. They hover over their good days with a trembling heart, whispering, "Please don't leave me." But joy is not scared of leaving. Joy is scared of being held too tightly. It is scared of being forced to stay in moments that have already passed. The truth is that joy is healthiest when it can breathe. It is strongest when you allow it to stretch, shift, and move in its own time. When you stop clutching joy like a secret that must never slip away, you discover it returns more freely, more often, and with more depth than you ever expected. Life changes, even in the middle of a smile. Moments fold into one another the way waves fold into shorelines. You cannot freeze the laughter of one afternoon, but you can open yourself to many afternoons. You cannot trap the exact feeling of one perfect conversation, but you can remain available for many conversations that carry their own beauty. When you stop trying to preserve joy in jars like fireflies, you begin to live with a heart open to receiving it in every shape it chooses to wear. Some days joy will be loud. Some days it will be quiet. Some days it will feel like celebration, and other days it will feel like simple peace. But it will be real, and it will be yours to feel without fear. People often cling to joy because they are terrified of the emptiness they think will follow after it fades. They believe that if they loosen their grip even a little, joy will slip through their fingers and never return. But emptiness is not something to fear. Emptiness is space. Space for healing. Space for rest. Space for new laughter that fits the person you are becoming. The version of you today may not need the same joys you needed a year ago. Life is always teaching you new ways to smile. When one moment ends, another begins shaping itself quietly, waiting for its turn to enter your life. There are joys you have not yet imagined, joys you have not yet been ready for, joys that will arrive at the exact moment you grow into them. Letting joy flow does not mean caring less about the moments that matter. It means honoring them enough to let them be what they are, moments. Beautiful, fleeting, powerful, memorable, but not meant to be held hostage. You can treasure them without trapping them. You can love them without forcing them to last forever. When you let moments breathe, they become more sacred, not less. The sweetness of life lies in the fact that nothing stays exactly the same. The sunrise is beautiful because it cannot be captured. Music is moving because the notes fade. Laughter brings light because it echoes for a moment then rests. You learn to love things more deeply when you accept their nature instead of fighting it. Joy, like water, prefers motion. It flows. It fills the spaces you make for it. It grows in hearts that trust the ebb and the flow. It stays longer when it knows it is free to leave without being chased. And when you let it move, you begin to notice joy in places where you never thought to look. You see it in the quiet calm of early morning. You hear it in the steady breath you forgot to appreciate. You find it in the small victories that used to slip past unnoticed. It becomes part of the way you live, not just something that visits when life is perfect. There is another kind of richness that comes from flowing with joy, gratitude. When you stop gripping moments out of fear, you begin to appreciate them with clarity. You savor them. You taste them. You hold them like warm stones in your palm, knowing they are precious because they are temporary. Gratitude makes joy feel fuller, deeper, more textured. It turns ordinary seconds into something golden. It teaches you to look at your life not through the lens of scarcity, but through the lens of abundance. You stop fearing the end of joy, because you learn that joy never really ends. It simply changes shape and returns in new ways. There will be days when joy feels far away, when stress and sorrow fill the room, when your heart feels too tired to lift itself. But these days do not cancel your joy. They do not erase the moments that warmed you. They do not close the door to future happiness. They are simply part of the rhythm. Every ocean has calm days and wild days, gentle tides and crashing waves. But the water is still the water. Your capacity for joy does not leave you when you hurt. It simply rests, waiting patiently, knowing it will rise again when the season shifts. And it always does. You become stronger in joy when you allow it to come and go naturally. You become more peaceful when you stop forcing happiness to stay fixed in one place. You learn to trust yourself more deeply. You learn to trust life more gently. You learn to trust that you do not need to chase joy or trap it or hold it with trembling hands. You only need to be open. Open to change. Open to new beginnings. Open to the truth that joy, like all beautiful things, is meant to move. And you, like all living things, are meant to move with it. When you stop gripping each moment as if it is the last good moment you'll ever have, the world opens wider. Your days feel lighter. Your heart becomes more flexible, more resilient, more ready to welcome wonder. Joy becomes not a rare visitor, but a familiar friend, one who knows it can return to you because you no longer fear its leaving. You learn to trust the rise and fall, the coming and going, the gentle truth that joy does not need to be contained to be felt fully. It only needs to be experienced, honored, and released when the time comes, knowing it will always find you again in the next season of your becoming. What leaves your life is often clearing space for what was meant to arrive all along, because not everything is meant to walk with you into every season. Life has a way of shifting the ground beneath you, removing what you once clung to, closing doors you thought would stay open forever. At first, it feels like loss, sharp and sudden, like someone has snatched comfort out of your hands. You may stand there stunned, wondering why something that mattered had to end, why someone you trusted drifted away, why a path you believed in became blocked. But beneath the ache, something quiet is happening, something purposeful, something rooted in growth rather than punishment. Space is being made, even if it feels like emptiness at first. People, habits, dreams, and situations do not always stay aligned with the person you are becoming. Sometimes you outgrow what once felt perfect. Sometimes the universe removes what you refuse to let go of. Sometimes things fall apart not because they are broken, but because they are complete. Their chapter is finished, their lesson delivered, their purpose fulfilled. And yet, we mourn those endings as if they are accidents. We forget that release is often the first step toward renewal. What leaves you may hurt you, but it also frees you, clearing the emotional clutter that blocks new possibilities from entering your life. There is a strange tenderness in realizing that loss is not always a thief. Sometimes loss is a guide. It points you in directions you never considered. It nudges you away from people who dimmed your spirit. It leads you out of situations that limited your growth. It breaks routines that kept you small. Even heartbreak, heavy and aching, makes space in your chest where deeper love can someday breathe. Even disappointment carves room for dreams that fit your soul better than the ones you forced. Even failure sweeps away the parts of your identity that you never needed to carry in the first place. But while it is happening, while the letting go is fresh, none of it feels like guidance. It feels like being dropped into cold water. It feels like uncertainty clutching your ribs. It feels unfair, confusing, disorienting. You may question yourself. You may wonder if you made a mistake, if you should have held on tighter, spoken louder, fought harder. You may replay memories, searching for a moment where the story could have been rewritten. But nothing that is meant to stay will slip away because of one wrong turn. What is meant for you has its own gravity. It finds you, returns to you, stays with you in ways that do not require force. And what is not meant for you drifts. No matter how tightly you cling, life is always rearranging itself to fit your becoming. You grow, and your environment must shift to match the new shape of your soul. Sometimes people leave because their presence would stunt your next chapter. Sometimes opportunities fall apart because they were stepping stones, not destinations. Sometimes a path closes because a wider one is waiting just beyond your fear. It is difficult to trust this in the moment, but trust is exactly what the moment is asking for. Trust that release does not equal rejection. Trust that endings are not punishments. Trust that space is sacred, spaces where transformation begins. Empty space is the soil where new intentions are planted. It is the quiet room where clarity echoes. It is the pause between breaths where understanding settles. Too often we rush to fill space with anything we can grab just to avoid the discomfort of emptiness. We cling to relationships because we're afraid of loneliness. We chase distractions because we're afraid of stillness. We cling to old versions of ourselves because we're afraid of change. But space is where the soft rewiring of the soul happens. When you resist the urge to fill it, you discover yourself again. You hear your own voice without interruption. You see what you truly want, not what you settled for. You grow roots deeper than before. What leaves your life creates this space intentionally. It clears pathways the way a gardener clears dead branches to help the tree breathe. It removes what blocks the sun from reaching your spirit. It pulls away what is draining your energy so something nourishing can take its place. If every person stayed, if every dream succeeded, if every plan unfolded the way you imagined, you would never grow beyond the boundaries of your comfort. You would never stretch into the wiser version of yourself. You would never learn the resilience that comes from rebuilding, the clarity that comes from reflection, or the joy that arrives only after making room for it. There is a rhythm to release. At first it is chaos, then it is quiet, then it is expansion. You begin noticing how lightness replaces heaviness, how peace replaces tension, how opportunities appear in the space where stress once lived. You begin attracting what aligns, because the things that no longer matched your direction have drifted away. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. When you let go of what is not meant for you, what is meant for you finds its opening. You may not recognize the blessings immediately. They often arrive subtly. A new friendship that feels effortless, a chance that sparks excitement, a moment of clarity that shifts your entire path, a renewed sense of self-respect, a boldness you didn't possess before. The person you are becoming is shaped not only by what arrives but also by what departs. Every exit creates the architecture for a new entrance. Every goodbye prepares you for a deeper hello. Every clearing makes space for roots that finally have room to grow strong and steady. Looking back, you will someday see the quiet logic behind every departure. You will understand why certain people were not meant to stay. You will recognize how losing one dream guided you toward a better one. You will see how being pushed out of one chapter set you up for the chapter where you began to bloom. You will realize that you were never being punished. You were being prepared. The space created by loss was never empty. It was sacred, intentional, waiting for what was meant to arrive all along.